There are times in life when everything just feels like it's up in the air, when the whole world even seems to have gone off the deep end, when there's stormy weather, waves crashing on the shores of your psyche. How do you stay grounded in the middle of all this chaos? How do you stay centered? That's a question I've asked myself a lot. That's a question I think a lot of people have asked and are asking, especially these days. And there is a way that I've found to meditate that helps me, a particular type of meditation. And I'd like to share that with you today. My name is Kieran, and on this channel, I share wholesome, healthy ways of living a better life, a simpler life, a more creative life for you. So, when I was younger, I could not meditate. I just couldn't figure out how to do it. I really thought that meditation was about clearing your mind, about having a blank slate in your mind, having no thoughts, having been able to stop your thoughts, basically. And I couldn't get myself to do that. And it felt very frustrating, and I felt like, well, this is some advanced psychological thing that I can't figure out. So I almost gave up on it. And then at some point, I came across this book. And I still have it. I got it in like 2008. And it's called Start Where You Are. And it's by Pema Chodron. And she's a Buddhist nun. And this is a book that definitely helped me understand meditation. This is a book that, in this book, she says that meditation is more about being gentle with yourself. And I want to read you a part from this book, one section, where she explains the technique for meditation that she recommends. So this is from page 5. Shamatha Vipassana meditation. In Shamatha Vipassana meditation, we sit upright with legs crossed and eyes open, hands resting on our thighs. Then we simply become aware of our breath as it goes out. It requires precision to be right there with that breath. On the other hand, it's extremely relaxed and extremely soft. Saying, "Be right there with the breath as it goes out," is the same thing as saying, "Be fully present." Be right here with whatever is going on. Being aware of the breath as it goes out, we may also be aware of other things going on. Sounds on the street, light on the walls. These things may capture our attention slightly, but they don't need to draw us off. We can continue to sit right here, aware of the breath going out. But being with the breath is only part of the technique. These thoughts that run through our minds continually are the other part. We sit here talking to ourselves. The instruction is that when you realize you've been thinking, you label it thinking. When your mind wanders off, you say to yourself, thinking. Whether your thoughts are violent or passionate or full of ignorance and denial, whether your thoughts are worried or fearful, whether your thoughts are spiritual thoughts, pleasing thoughts of how well you're doing, comforting thoughts, uplifting thoughts, whatever they are, without judgment or harshness, simply label it all thinking. And do that with honesty and gentleness. The touch on the breath is light. Only about 25% of the awareness is on the breath. You're not grasping or fixating on it. You're opening, letting the breath mix with the space of the room, letting your breath just go out into space. Then there's something like a pause, a gap until the next breath goes out again. While you're breathing in, there could be some sense of just opening and waiting. It's like pushing the doorbell and waiting for someone to answer. Then you push the doorbell again and wait for someone to answer. Then probably your mind wanders off and you realize you're thinking again. At this point, use the labeling technique. It's important to be faithful to the technique. If you find that your labeling has a harsh, negative tone to it, as if you were saying, "Damn it," that you're giving yourself a hard time, say it again and lighten up. It's not like trying to drown the thoughts as if they were clay pigeons. It's not. Instead, be gentle. Use the labeling part of the technique as an opportunity to develop softness and compassion for yourself. Anything that comes up is okay in the arena of meditation. The point is you can see it honestly and make friends with it. Although it is embarrassing and painful, it is very healing to stop hiding from yourself. It is healing to know all the ways that you're sneaky, all the ways that you hide out, all the ways that you shut down, deny, close off, criticize people, all your weird little ways. You can know all of that with some sense of humor and kindness. By knowing yourself, you're coming to know humanness altogether. By knowing yourself, we are all up against these things. We are all in this together. So when you realize that you're talking to yourself, label it thinking and notice your tone of voice. Let it be compassionate and gentle and humorous. Then you'll be changing stuck old patterns that are shared by the whole human race. Compassion for others begins with kindness to ourselves. So this is a great description of how and there's a lot in this book. I highly recommend this book. Start Where You Are. And she has some other books too. I've read, I believe, The Places That Scare You and When Things Fall Apart. Those are also good books. When I have meditated before I learned her techniques, before I read this book, I also tried to stop my thoughts. And I was trying to repress my thoughts, basically. And then I realized that it's about observing my thoughts. It's about being compassionate and learning to observe my thoughts. So try that, where you basically sit down in a spot. You're sitting up, you're not lying down, because if you lie down, you're going to fall asleep. So I recommend sitting when you want to meditate. If you want to do the deep relaxation, you can do that, which I will go over. But then for the meditation part, you need to be sitting up so that you don't fall asleep. So first we do the deep relaxation, and that is done by breathing. As the book says, you breathe in deeply, you kind of take it slow, you take deep breaths, but you take slower breaths, and you try to slow it down, and you try to breathe deliberately. You focus on breath deliberately, and you go deeper. Take the breaths down to your stomach, down to your abdomen, and then let it out slowly. And then as you do that, you start to notice the sounds in your environment. Try to think of the farthest sound that you can hear. Maybe there's a bus far away, there are some people across the street, there's some bird chirping somewhere, and try to just notice the sounds. You can also try to notice the environment that you're sitting in, your skin, and what the temperature is, and what kind of surface are you sitting on. Is it hard or soft? What kind of clothes you're wearing? What's the temperature? Things like that. And then you notice what's coming in through your senses. So your ears, your skin, if you're smelling anything, you can notice that. Just notice these things. And then you will notice that you will get thoughts. Thoughts will emerge. And I think in another book, she talks about when we are noticing the thoughts, we can consider in our mind's eye that these thoughts are bubbling up like little bubbles. Like when you were little and you used to blow bubbles with a little soap bubble maker. You can think of it like that, where the thoughts are sort of bubbling up and you are just very gently touching them with a feather, like a gentle touch, a bing, where you're acknowledging each thought. And you might get immersed in the thought where you're like, wow, you're actually in the thought, thinking the thought. And then as she says, pull yourself out and say, oh, that's a thought. Thinking, that's thinking. And as you do that, you can also imagine using a small feather to lightly touch the thought bubble. Each bubble, you can think of it like a little movie. Your thoughts are in the bubble. And as you do that, you start to realize there are more thoughts that come up. You do it again and again. You might get immersed in the thought again, and then you pull yourself out. And you realize eventually that the time period between where the thought emerges, where the bubble comes up, and the time when you realize that it's a thought and you label it thought or you touch it with a feather, that time period shrinks. So you're able to do it faster. You're able to recognize that you are thinking and observe your thoughts faster, quicker, instead of being immersed in them for longer. And it still happens, but you end up, with practice, learning how to be able to observe your thoughts more. And then you also realize that this vast ocean of consciousness that's where your thoughts are occurring, and you are the consciousness who is having the thoughts. You are not your thoughts, because you can observe your thoughts. And therefore, your thoughts are occurring in the space where your consciousness is, where you are conscious. There's a space, and in that space, that's where the thoughts, like each bubble, emerges and pops or floats away. And you just start becoming aware of the conscious being that you are. And that consciousness connects you to other beings, to other humans and animals and plants and everything else in the world. And once you start feeling that connection, it can be overwhelming. So you have to ease into it. Take it slow, do a little bit at a time, do a little bit every day. And eventually you become more and more comfortable being in that space as consciousness. And you become more and more aware that that's the real you. That's the you that's having the experiences that you're having. That's the you that is thinking the thoughts you're thinking, the memories you have, the labels and words and identities that you might use and identify with. Those are all part of this larger ocean of consciousness, which is you. You are the thing that is doing the observing, not the thing that's being observed. Even if you get immersed in those thoughts and ideas and identities and words and memories, that's okay. That's your experience, but you are the one having the experience. Just like when you hear a motorcycle whiz by, you hear the sound of the motorcycle and you might get immersed in the sound of it, but you are the one hearing the sound of it. You are not the sound itself. You are not the motorcycle. You are the one who is hearing the sound. Thus, you are also the one to whom these thoughts are occurring, to whom memories, which are also thoughts. Everything is a thought that is not coming in through your senses. And all those thoughts are occurring within the space of your consciousness. So you become conscious of your consciousness. You become aware of your awareness. And that is a very calm and peaceful place to be in. And sometimes it only happens in glimpses. And sometimes you're able to sit in that space with that awareness, that sort of meta awareness, longer. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes to access that place. And the easier it becomes, even when you're not meditating, to be able to pull yourself out and observe your thoughts, observe your reactions, observe what something in your environment is making you feel or think about. And instead of reacting from a place of non-consciousness, you can react, or you can be more aware of the environment and what's happening and what you want to do. You could take more deliberate steps. And that does help ground me. That when I do that helps ground you. It can help center you. It can help calm you. It is a very valuable practice to be able to meditate. And there are other ways to meditate. There's visualization. There are ways to do, there's guided meditations, all kinds. You can use music or like binaural beats, and there are different ways to do meditation. And many of them might work for other people and have even worked for me. There are times when I try different kinds of music, like instrumental music without any words. So this is a method that works for me no matter where I am. So I can do it even if I don't have access to a music player at that moment. Like if I'm at a workplace environment, I can do that. The part with the breathing and noticing what's coming in your ears and your senses, that's the deep relaxation. You can do that at any time you need to relax. If you have to give a speech or a presentation, do that before. It would help. But when you're doing the meditation and watching your thoughts and the bubbles and, touching the feather and all that, that's something that would be part of a meditative practice. And I would recommend doing that every day. You don't even need a timer. I would say just put aside 15, 20 minutes, half hour, and just try to do that in terms of find a space that you are relatively private and will not be disturbed, and it's safe for you to sit with your eyes closed and just try it. It has really helped me, and I would like to make a video at some point demonstrating how I've done it, some of the physical practices, and also doing maybe some guided meditation. So I would love to hear from you. I hope that you found this interesting and useful, and I hope that you will be able to apply some of these ideas in your meditative practice. I'd love to hear from you about what works for you, what kind of meditation works for you, and if you've read anything about meditation that has helped you. Please remember to subscribe to this channel, like and share the video if you can, and remember to pick up the book, Start Where You Are, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good life.